Okay, guys, I'm going down a rabbit hole tonight. I'm going to ask you guys some questions, and if this is something that has happened in our country, is happening in our country, or you hear it's coming to our country, I want you guys to either put a yes or put a one or something just to say you've heard about it or whatever. Collectivization of agriculture and establishment of collective farms. Forced requisitioning of grain and agricultural products to fulfill quotas. 5-year plans to centralize economic development and industrialization. State control and nationalization of major industries. All right. Command economy with strict production targets and centralized resources allocation. Here's a good one. I better see a lot of ones for this one. State ownership of land, prohibiting private ownership. I know we've all heard of that. How about propaganda campaigns to promote our government? Suppression of political opposition and dissenting voices. I see a lot of ones. I don't see anyone disagreeing yet. How about strict control over media, censorship, and suppression of independent journalism? Or the education system emphasizing government ideology and loyalty to the government? Limitations on religious activities and promoting atheism. Passport and travel restrictions, making it difficult for citizens to leave the country. State control and regulation of cultural and artistic expression. Need more coffee. A lot of ones, yep. Limitations of foreign travel and contact with foreigners. Mass campaigns for literacy and education among the population. Introduction of universal health care and expansion of medical services. Like, I don't know, for our children right now, they're pushing these medical services for our children. Implementation of a system of internal passports for citizens. Promotion of women's rights and gender equality in the workforce. Creation of youth organizations. Development of the military-industrial complex. Reconstructing of national borders. And annexation of territories. So far, sounds like we've either done it, doing it, or are going to be doing it. Implementation of mandatory military service. Intensification of censorship. Promotion of industrialization of rural areas through the establishment of industrial complexes. Nationalism of banks and financial institutions. How many banks have shut down? We have CBDC coming. FedNow, I think, is already started or is starting this month. State control over foreign trade. Strict regulations on imports and exports. Regulation of housing allocation and housing policies. Promotion of physical fitness and sports activities among the population. Introduction of rationing and food distribution programs. Development of the nuclear weapons program. Establishment of collective child care facilities. Expansion of the railway system and infrastructure development. Introduction of mass campaigns for literacy and education. I'm going somewhere with this, you guys. Stick with me. I really am. Implementation of compulsory military training in schools. Control over access to information and dissemination of government-approved content. Implementation of a system of internal surveillance and monitoring of citizens. Restrictions on access of foreign literature and cultural products. Introduction of state-sponsored housing or construction programs like the 15-minute cities. Creation of a system of awards and medals for achievements and loyalty to the government. We'll give you a free donut or a free burger if you go get this job because the government told you to. promotion of scientific research and technological advancements, and then introduction of mandatory participation in state organized celebrations and demonstrations. There's a lot of ones in there, guys. A lot of ones. And I didn't read all of them, but I did read most of them because a lot of them applied. A lot of them are things that we have heard or seen or know is coming. Every single thing that I read on this list is out of the rules, laws, and regulations of Stalin's Soviet Union. The Communist Party. This is everything that he implemented to control the people. Plus others that haven't come yet, but and I want to get into this a little bit because I don't think this war in Russia is just about Ukraine, and I'm sure a lot of you. So I want to talk about that just a little bit. I think a lot of the things that are going on out there are a lot of distractions, which you all agree. I just named off at least 45 different rules and laws that Stalin has put in place in the past. And most of us were alive during the Soviet Union. We're aware of the Soviet Union. Some of us in the chat were not. But some of us were not aware of the Soviet Empire. The Soviet Empire, and I'll get into that as well, but the Soviet Empire wasn't just the Soviet Union, it was their allies. Their allies and the Soviet Union is what created the Soviet Empire, and it was huge. And I'm going to break some numbers down for you to just kind of give you an idea of how big this was, and in comparison, how it could happen now, or how I feel it might be happening, starting to happen now. So the Constitution of the Soviet Union was the main law for the country. It explained how government worked, the rights and duties of the people, and how different institutions functioned. Criminal Code was the Russia Soviet, and a lot of this is stuff that we do too. We just call it something different, or our laws are being amended to change to line up with this. So the Criminal Code of the Russian Soviet Federation Party had its own set of laws that defined crimes and punishment for committing them. And I wanted to bring this up because how many times were our peaceful protests labeled as terrorists, the people that attended, but then the protests that were burning down cities, nothing happened to those people. So they're picking and choosing who falls under their laws or their regulations that they are creating, which is the same thing that they did back in the Soviet Union. It's the exact same thing. Labor code, there was a set of laws regulated to work and for workers' rights. It covered things like wages, working hours, time off, and Social Security, which sounds great until you didn't follow their laws, and I'll get into that, and you could go to jail or go to a camp. You could go to a camp to basically pay your fine. Economy regulations determining how resources were allocated, production targets were set, prices were controlled, and goods were distributed. We're kind of already having that. That could be, you could consider the lack of our goods, our foods, our gas, or so forth, as if this is purposefully being done, then this would fall right into line with their allocating to us who can have what. It's controlling the food, controlling the commodities, controlling what we need. It's a way to control the people. You've got the press laws. The government had strict control over the media. Laws were in place to limit freedom of speech, freedom of press, and freedom of expression, ensuring that only state-approved information was disseminated. Fact checkers. Hello? Is that not what they're doing? Or shadow banning, or deleting people's channels that are speaking truth, which, as always, I'm always on the border of worrying about having mine deleted. It could be deleted this time. Who knows? I'll start again. State security laws to protect the state. Laws were enacted to combat espionage, maintain security, and suppress activities such as a threat to the regimen. The KGB was the main security agency for this. So Does everyone know that Putin was in the KGB? I don't know if everyone here knows that. So he's already familiar with all these laws, all these regulations. He knows how to enforce them. He knows what has to be done. He knows what propaganda has to go out. He's not a stupid man. He's got very high training to manipulate, to plan, to control. He knows how to do it. We've got the propaganda laws. The government used extensive propaganda, and laws were put in place to control the flow of information. These laws restricted the distribution of material considered anti Soviet and enforced the use of state approved ideological content. So, how hard is it for us to find a story that is not on our mainstream media from other countries? If you don't have a VPN, and even sometimes with a VPN, you are not going to be able to find the stories or the news or the articles in other countries. They are preventing us from really seeing what's going on. And we have to take the word of either mainstream media or people that have channels like myself that know people there directly that can get information from people on the ground. And because we have people out there doing that, they are trying to do everything they can to stop us from getting that information out. So they are pushing exactly their own misinformation out to counteract what we're trying to get out. Passport and travel laws. Soviet citizens needed internal passports for domestic travel, and additional permissions were required for international travel. These laws restricted movement and made it difficult for people to leave the country. It seems to me during COVID, they already tried to do that with us. If you didn't have the jab, you couldn't go to most countries. Or if another country was supposed to be a high infection rate, you could not go to that country from here. Or if you were able to go to another country, you had to quarantine for a week while you were on your 1 week vacation. So, what was the point of that? What was the point of going if you weren't able to go anywhere? You had to quarantine for a week. But they made it very, very difficult for people to go to other countries or even to go domestic because some of the airlines were requiring that you had to get tested. Well, some people refused to take the tests, which is fine, but then they couldn't go anywhere. So they kind of already tested this as far as putting laws and regulations in place. We haven't officially had the passports yet, but we've heard through the grapevine and through rumors and whispers that those passports are coming. They are coming to prevent us from going to certain distances or to not leave our 15-minute cities if we move to one. So it's almost like they've taken all their laws and all their regulations, and obviously the Soviet Union fell. We all know that. However, if I was going to try to rebuild something that I truly believed in, and the first ways that I tried did not work, I would tweak them a little bit and try again and hope that I didn't fail the second time. But I would make changes to my regulations, my laws, and so forth, and try to succeed. So we've got the collective farming laws. Agriculture was organized into collective farms and state farms. Laws determined land ownership, farm management, and the sharing of agriculture produce among the collective members. How many farms have already been shut down? How many farmers have already had to cull their chickens? How many farmers have had to already dump out all the cow's milk, or they mysteriously burned down, or they were forced to shut down for whatever reason, um, or they had to sell their properties to the government or not be able to get special licensing, like they would prevent them from getting special licensing or being able to pay their taxes because they would increase them to a ridiculous amount and so forth. So this is somewhat already happening. They are already trying their best to start controlling the farms and take them away from the people. And they're already talking about we talked about this before, community gardens, collective gardens. You have to have a license to have these. Well, that is a way for government to control your collective gardens and your collective farms. So this is already in place, or already starting to be in place and enforced. And this is a way that they back in the day in Soviet Union times, this is a way that they stopped people from taking too much food. They regulated how much food went out and who it went to. Okay, so then they had the forced agriculture policies where they were forcibly consolidating small farms into the large collective farms, which led to the resistance on many farmers because they couldn't survive by throwing their farms into the collective farm. It just wasn't possible. So there was some pushback on that. I thought this was interesting. The Great Purge, Stalin's Great Purge. So Stalin, and let me switch pages here because I'm on the next one. Stalin used to, and this sounds very similar to kind of what's going on here with the T-Man. Stalin physically eradicated political opponents or legally eradicated them, disgraced them from public popularity. So he would do his best to falsely accuse them, to put them in jail, publicly disgrace them to the point they had no support anymore, and or make them disappear or execute them. So it kind of sounds like that's happened a little bit in the last couple years with even actually not even just a couple years. If you go all the way back to when T-Man was president, how long did the court case go? His entire term. They tried to nail him with this. That was one of the ways that Stalin used to get rid of his opponents was to publicly disgrace them, um, jail them, accuse them of crimes, and tie them up in legal system, and then get them in jail and get rid of them. And then he would go back into historical records and he would rewrite them. He would erase the person from history to include, which this blew my mind, take them out of historical pictures. He would erase them out of historical pictures. So there was no mention of them, no record of them anymore. They just disappeared. Abolishing religion. They abolished religion. They were, you had to be a part of supporting the state atheism. Atheism. There was no more God allowed. You could not worship God anymore. You had to believe in the government. There was no God. Government was the God. So there was no more churches. You were not allowed to worship anymore. No worship books. No worship songs. And not just Christianity. Any religion. They frowned on any religion. So they made them illegal for you to attend, to participate, to be a part of it, and you had to support the state's atheism. Unwelcome books. And this has started happening this year. I don't know if you all know this. Unwelcome books. So they have recently started in the schools pulling books that they deem as offensive or dangerous to the people, that was against their agenda. So they are going into schools and libraries and so forth, and they are pulling these books because they are saying, not just books, but magazines, the media, so forth, saying that they are against the government or that they are extreme activism or against the ABC crowd, like the offensive and this and that. They're already doing this. And this is exactly the same thing they did back in the Soviet Union to control the people. They eradicated all literature that they deemed as dangerous for protection of the state. And now a lot of the things that are pulled, the media and so forth that is pulled is not just offending people, but it is also some of it labeled as being against national security. Abolishing ideological censorship in art. So they not only created the media and the magazines, the newspapers, the everything else, they also started controlling what art could go out, what art could be created. And as soon as I heard this, I had thought about all the little clips I had heard of the AI engineers talking about how AI is going to basically take over the creativity of art. that we won't have to be creative anymore because AI can draw anything. AI can create any video. AI can make any song, any tune. People don't have to be creative anymore. They don't have to use their brains. They don't have to do anything. AI will do everything for us. But the thing is, AI has to be programmed to be within certain boundaries. And we don't actually know, the public, the majority of the public don't actually know what this AI has been given for boundaries. And when you play with it now, like if you play with ChatGPT now, it is very biased on a lot of things. And that is something that had to have been programmed in it. When you go into the AI art programs, there are some things that just some of the pictures show up absolutely stunning, and some of them are just a garbled mess. It's very biased because of perimeters that were set that it has to stay within. So it kind of makes me wonder if those perimeters that were set are actually another way to censor what artwork is being put out or created. Um, of course, we know that during the Soviet Union that they were blocking. They had technology that could block Western radio waves, and of course, that is happening here. It's always happened here. We can't get the radio waves from overseas to find out what's going on, just like we can't get the news articles and so forth from what's going on. Everything is influenced by the media that we have here. They censor all of the news and radio and music and whatever that they don't want the people to know, blocking any type of information from other countries. All right, so this just happened recently, and this is something that we are currently fighting and pushing back on um, daily, not just in our personal lives of what's going on around us, but also with what we're seeing on TV, what we're seeing in the news, what's going on in the schools, what's going on in the churches. And one of the things they did to control humanity, their population, was to decriminalize, originally, they decriminalized homosexuality. They made it okay so that people would come out. They made it okay so that they could go celebrate, so that they could go public, so that they could have rights and get out there. They did this to get people to come out and to cause some disruption and so forth. After everyone thought everything was fine and well, and there were public displays and so forth everywhere, and people were not afraid to show it anymore, and talking about it and reaching out to other people because they might be gay too and they don't know it. They turned around and recriminalized it. So and it took about 10 years. So once they decriminalized it, 10 years later they recriminalized it. But by this point, after 10 years, they already had a huge awareness of who to go after, who to put in jail, who to throw out of the country, who to unalive. They already knew because they had 10 years to gather this information. And that's pretty smart to decriminalize something. Look at our drugs, guys. Look at how many states are decriminalizing these hard drugs. But this particular one was just homosexuality, which just recently came out within the last few years that it's okay. You have all the rights as everybody else. We don't know if they're following the same patterns 10 years from when they did that. What if they recriminalize it? What if they have the 10 years to get a list of all these people? And what's interesting to me is the biggest way that they jailed people or persecuted people or killed them, basically, legally killed them, was that they said that the homosexuals were going after the children to corrupt them. Does that sound familiar, guys? Does that sound familiar? We're yelling from the rooftops that this is happening. I'm not saying this is not happening. I know darn well this is happening. But if enough of us keep yelling that from the rooftops, what happens when the government is like, oh, you know what, you're right, and starts going after these people, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But what if that was the plan the whole time? What if it was the plan the whole time to jail these people or, expel them in whatever means necessary, whether it be to move them out of the country or jail them or whatever? That could have been their plan, and we very well could have fallen into it. A large group could have fell into it, and because it's the cool thing to do, a lot of kids are following along, and what if they're what if they're falling into a trap? I wouldn't put it past government to set people up like that over a long time, because we know that these plans that they do take a long time. One of the other things that was uh, very much enforced was that you could not make jokes about political leaders. It was so serious, it was to the point of jail or death. You could not have any anti Soviet propaganda or anti government information or speech out there, because they would go after you. They kind of sort of do it here, but this is the start. Like, if you say we do a video and we say something that YouTube doesn't agree with about our leaders, they're going to fix your channel. They're going to take it off because they don't agree with what you just said about our leadership. So it's slowly starting to roll out. Another thing that I thought was strange that's not happening here, and it would be very strange if it did, was that they banned martial arts. You were not allowed to do any martial arts whatsoever. You could only do boxing and wrestling, but any other martial arts, to include coaching, um, was absolutely illegal and banned. And if you were caught, you went to jail. You were not allowed to quit your job. You could not be late to your job. You could not be late from work. And remember, I was talking about they had rules for like labor rules, and that I said it all sounds really good until you get to the actual circumstances of if you're late or if you don't show up. So if you quit your job, or if you were late to your job or late from break, or if you were no show, you were jailed or punished by corrective work. And corrective work meant that you had to go to work 7 days a week. You had no free time. That was the way that they regulated labor. Was you show up for work, you show up on time, whether it's for the start of your shift or from break, or you go to jail, or you have corrective work, which is forced to work 7 days a week. You have, if you had no job and you were a beggar or you were homeless, you were deemed to be against the social equality and labeled as antisocial or a parasitic element. And you were removed from society and either killed or sent off somewhere for a resettlement for 5 years. This one I thought was interesting too, because do you remember last year when people were saying that a lot of homeless communities were being torn down and those people were disappearing and nobody knows where they went? It kind of makes me wonder if this resettlement has already started, if they have either shipped them off somewhere or jailed them or just done away with them to not have them anymore. But that was just for beggars and homeless. But we had hundreds of homeless people, especially in California, that just disappeared. Whole communities, tent cities that just disappeared, and nobody knows where they went. There was no record of them. Nobody could contact them. They just didn't see them again. They were gone. Nobody ever even looked into it. So it was kind of strange. I know there was a lot of people talking about it, but now that I see this is something that they did back in the Soviet Union to get rid of beggars and homeless, it kind of makes me wonder if that's what was going on, but nobody was aware of what was coming. If you had no job but you were not homeless, you were labeled as sponging, or again a social parasite is you know what I'm trying to say. So basically, if you're not working and you're living with a friend, anyone without what they deemed as official income, they had to deem the job that you had as official income. So if you were working on tips and you did not have a steady income, that was not considered official income. You had to have a steady paycheck that was basically the same amount or more every single paycheck, or it was not deemed as an official job. And if you did not have an official job, that they considered official, you went to jail. You went to jail. You had to have an official job. Black marketeering. You were not able to obtain anything foreign made legally. Only the elite could do that. If you were caught with anything that was foreign made, unless you were an elite, automatically you were put in jail for 7 years. And that was something as simple as a pair of Levi jeans. You couldn't have anything American made. And it kind of makes me wonder, since commodities are coming in slow and we're having a hard time getting things from certain places, if this law will come about here eventually. Of course, it's not going to happen tomorrow, but a lot of these are already in force, or it seems like they're starting to roll them into effect. You could not have any foreign money. You couldn't have any hard cash of foreign money. And they did away with a lot of the hard cash, which is funny because they've been doing that here. They are rolling out the CBDC. They are rolling out the Fed now. They are saying that there is a shortage on coins. It's hard to get your cash out of the bank. You have to come back to get your cash out of the bank because they don't have enough cash, which is amazing because they seem to print whatever they want for whatever they need. But this is the same thing they did in the Soviet Union. They made it where you couldn't have any foreign hard cash, and they limited the amount of hard cash that they had within the Soviet Union and the Soviet Empire. This one I thought was funny, and this has been going on here to some extent for a while. Distilling moonshine. And it had moonshine. It literally said moonshine or any other alcohol at home. Completely banned. You were banned from making it for personal use or for public sales. If you were caught with homemade moonshine or other alcohol, you automatically got 6 to 7 years in jail. 6 to 7 years in jail. Even if you were making it just for yourself and your family and you got caught with a jar of homemade moonshine, you were automatically put in jail for 6 to 7 years. If you had a still but no alcohol, you went to corrective labor, which was the going to work 7 days a week, so you had no free time, or you had a huge fine you had to pay. So after I went through all these rules and I was watching some of the coverage on the overseas war between Russia and Ukraine, I started thinking out of the box of how in the world could they possibly put all of this in effect in this country, in this day and this age? How could they completely take over everything? And the more I thought about it, the more I thought about the economy and how a lot of them are pulling out of our economy. And they're getting involved. A lot of the countries are getting involved in the BRICS. If you guys know what the BRICS is, I'm sure you do. If you don't, I couldn't even try to explain it other than they're pulling away from the US dollar and they have their own agenda for the economy. Okay. So the primary BRICS members is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That is the BRICS. Those are the official top 5 members. Okay. The BRICS New Development Bank members are Bangladesh, Egypt, United Arab Emirates, and Uruguay. And some of them may now be a part of the actual BRICS membership, but I'm not sure. They were in process, and they may officially be a part of it now. So BRICS plan is to dominate the world economy by 2050. That is their plan on why they started the BRICS membership, is to dominate the world economy by 2050. So then I wanted to break down how in the world could they take the United States. We always talk about, we have a bigger military, they have weapons, but we have better weapons, or whatever. There's different disagreements and discussions along the lines of all of this. So then I wanted to look at the the sizes and the population of the BRICS community and or the BRICS membership and our United States population and landmass and so forth to kind of compare sizes of if it were them against us. So Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa combined have 15,346,100 square miles. And they own, that is a total of 26.7% of the total land mass in the world. Okay. Population is of those of the BRICS, the top five BRICS members is 3.21 billion people, and that accounts for 41.5% of the world population. If you want to break it down to just our threats, Russia and China, Russia has 6,612,074 square miles, which is about twice the size of the area of Canada. And that is 11% of the world's landmass, and population is 146.2 million, which is 1.8% of the world population. China has 3,690,100 square miles, which is 8% of the landmass of the earth. And the population of China is 1.4 billion, which is 18.5% of the world population. If you compare that to the United States population, and this is, I'm going over this because if they decided to come after us to conquer us, I want to compare numbers for how big they really are compared to our size. This is why I'm going over this, guys. So if you compare it to the United States population is currently 331 million people. 331 million people here that would be left to hold our ground if they came into our country against just China and Russia, which is 1.6 billion population. 331 million to 1.6 billion population. That is a huge outnumber, guys. We have 6.56% of the total landmass on the earth, and we have 4.25% of the world's population in the United States. Countries who have applied for becoming a member of BRICS, and this is not the full list, I got tired of writing all of them, but it's Algeria, Belarus, Bahrain, Comoros, Bangladesh, Cuba, Ethiopia, Dominican, Iran, Congo, Saudi Arabia, Afghanistan, and Angola, which some of these I know are now part of BRICS, but at the time I was doing this, they were just applying for membership. So they want to be a part of BRICS, basically. They want to drop the dollar and they want to get into this membership with these countries that are considered our threats. And the USSR and China were allies back in the day because they share the ideology of communism and the desire to take down the United States. And they fell apart at one point, but now you guys, they're together again. They have that same connection that they want to take down the United States and destabilize us, and they want to continue with communism. Then you had the Sino-Soviet alliance, which was what I'm saying is the Soviet Empire, and that was the Soviet Union and their allies, which was China and a bunch of other countries around that area, which is why I brought up China with BRICS. And they were the economic aid, which is what BRICS is, guys, the economic aid to each other. All right. And military cooperation. Is that not what China and Russia are doing? They're literally having military cooperation. They are aligned together in BRICS for financial support. Okay. The Soviet Union provided economic aid to help with industrial and infrastructure development, supplied military technology and weapons, provided each other with agricultural needs, and provided each other with consumer goods. This is happening now. They are repeating history. They are doing this again. They are helping each other to work together to bring us down. So then I went even deeper in my thought process. Okay. Well, wait, let me also tell you that the Soviet Union also would ship who they deemed as minorities to other locations to protect their people. Okay. So there are rumors out there that Biden is in China's pocket, right? Something is up. It's pretty obvious. We know that China is in Russia's pocket. Okay. You know that because China's already said if anything happens to you, we are going to step in. Oh, what? You guys need commodities. We're going to send you some. We're not going to set them here anymore. We're going to stop people from coming close to your country. They're already doing that. China's in Russia's pocket. China and Russia obviously are working together with war support, with BRICS, with consumer goods, with oil, so forth. So, my thumbnail was Build Back Better. Okay? Build Back Better. That was our president's slogan, Build Back Better. What have we seen in the United States that has been built back better? I've not seen anything. I've seen food not being in the stores. I've seen gas prices go up. I've seen people lose their jobs. I've seen people get sick. I've seen people get sick and die. I've seen people not be able to get medical help. I've seen more destruction and more division than I've ever seen in the past. So, are we really building back better? Or was Build Back Better not actually meant for us? It was for whose pockets he's in. It was for who he has been secretly helping and getting funds from. What if the whole purpose of his slogan was not to build us back better, but to rebuild the empire better, to fix their mistakes they made in the past, to make the empire bigger and better this time? Everything is falling into place to where China and Russia and so forth is getting stronger. Okay. They are working together, they are supporting each other, they have each other's backs. Okay. So if the leaders are showing signs of following suit with the USSR and the China in the past, which was the Soviet Empire, we're already, I literally, the first thing, if you did not see the beginning of this live, go back and watch it because I went through 50 different, not 50, almost 50 different questions that I asked you if this is something you've heard happen here or did happen or is going to happen, is coming, is starting to be rolled out. But what you guys didn't know is that was the rules and regulations of the Soviet Union, of the Soviet Empire that were already in place to control the people. So they are following suit. Um, they are following a lot of the same rules, and they are implementing a lot of the same rules here. The other thing that concerned me is we have already. I'm not going to say we because we as the people were not a part of it, and we as the people did not agree with it. Our administration has already left equipment in Afghanistan. Okay. We are currently placing equipment in Ukraine under the title of helping them. Okay. We are placing equipment in Poland to help them fight against Russia. All of these countries that we are placing equipment in to help them were a part of the Soviet Union at one point or the Soviet Empire. They were all a part of it, which is why so many of the countries jumped on NATO because they did not want to be back to be a part of the Soviet Union. They were aware that uh, Putin is trying to recreate or to revive the Soviet Union. So they jumped on NATO to have protection. Okay. But all these countries that we are placing equipment in, but in Afghanistan, is all a part or was a part of the Soviet Union and or empire. So if Putin succeeds in taking Ukraine, he's not going to stop there. And I think most of us will agree on that. He's going to push to Poland, which Poland has already expressed fears of that. He's going to push to Finland. He's going to push to Germany. He's going to just keep pushing as far as he can to keep pushing. If Russia does take UK, we've already supplied them with the equipment and supplies, and in turn have also supplied China because they are allies. And I'm not saying we shouldn't be helping Ukraine or any innocent people. I just want you to see that there's a possibility that what we are doing could get into the wrong hands. It also seems like our administration is breaking down our military. Our military is not the same as it used to be. Our soldiers are not like they used to be. They are wearing us thin. They are sending us into wars we have no business being in. They are accepting people and into the military while they are lowering standards of what they have to do, what they can do to be able to get in. They have, for lack of better words, pussified boot camp, so that a lot of the people going into the military now don't go through the rigorous hardship of the physical activity, the mental breakdowns, the emotional breakdowns that our original soldiers used to have to go through for a reason. They had to be tough, not only to face what they were going to see if they had to go to war, but also to be able to hold it together if they were ever a POW. That doesn't happen now. The soldiers that we're bringing in now, the training that they are getting now, if a lot of those people are POWs, they are not going to hold up like our original soldiers did 10 years ago. They're breaking us down not only from wearing us thin, but from the inside out. So if UK does get taken over, or Ukraine, not UK, I keep saying UK, Ukraine does get taken over, and Putin does keep going and they go into Poland or Finland or any of the other NATO countries, NATO will get involved. However, a lot of these NATO or a lot of these countries that are a part of BRICS were also a part of the Soviet Union, which tells me that it seems like BRICS might not just be for economic gain. It seems to me that there may be something behind the scenes that BRICS countries, there may be a secret of them combining if it comes down to having to push against NATO. And the BRICS in whole is 41.5% of the world population for just the top five. That's not including all the minors that are applying or that are new members now. Once they do that, once they get in, that is going to be 50%, more than 50% of the world population coming at us if BRICS really is not just for economical gain. And if we're over 50%, even if NATO is involved, you have people who are not involved in NATO and not involved in BRICS that are going to try to sit it out. But that still outnumbers us by numbers, guys, by numbers. I feel like our administration, with all the laws that he has changed and all the regulations and rules he has put in, and dropping borders and letting people freely come over and being in people's pockets and leaving equipment behind, I feel like we as the United States, we the people, are getting set up, are being worn down, are being thinned out to be taken over. And a lot of the laws that are in place that match up with the communist rules and regulations that we have rolling out, it seems like the people that are going along with it now, not us that believe in the Constitution, but the ones that don't believe in the Constitution, that it would be a simple transition for them to go right into communism without even realizing it. They would just go right along with it because half the rules and regulations are already in place, desensitizing. So if we are moving towards the Soviet Empire being even larger and weakening the United States to be taken over, it seems to me that that would be a really easy way to complete the agenda of the New World Order, the one world government, the one world currency, and the one world religion, based on just what they've done, what they're doing, what they plan on doing. to us here in the United States. And then I thought maybe that is how, if any of you remember the Deagle report, if you looked at it closely, it showed that it declined 2/3 of the world population, okay? Which, of course, would happen during a war, or to that extent, it would have to be a war or a mass casualty of a natural event of catastrophic proportions. But the Deagle report also, if you looked based on country, showed that China and Russia's population grew massively by 2030, and that a lot of the other countries, including ours, dwindled. And lots of us assumed that the population within our country was via death, via the jab. But what if the Deagle report of our dwindling country population was not actually a mass death? What if the dwindling number of our country was because our country was no longer, because it shrunk, because it was overtaken and it became a different country, a different rulership, a different government, which would make sense for the numbers to rise with China and Russia, with the Russian Empire being rebuilt, if they were sent in to take us over and make us a lot smaller than we are now. So it's not necessarily the United States population going down by a death. It's those population numbers being taken out of our number of our country and being put into another because they grew. That was the end of my thoughts after staying up till 3 o'clock in the morning, thinking of all of this and putting pieces together and looking at what's already been done and where these rules and so forth came from and how they roll it out and put it in here to the United States and start them in the United States. And I wanted to go down the rabbit hole, and I did. And I wanted to share what I found with all of you. Some of y'all might think I'm nuts, but that's okay because I pray it doesn't happen. But if it does, you are aware. Don't comply. Do not comply. To the best of your ability, do not comply. Because everything that I have cross-checked, referenced, followed, put together would be terrible for us. And I really hope that most of us fight tooth and nail to not have this come to our country, because it's not good for us at all. I hope I taught y'all something. I hope, I'm sure a lot of you weren't aware of a lot of these things that are already in effect. Like I said, I hope it doesn't happen. Teach your children the possibilities of what could come. Talk to your neighbors. Somehow, drop a hint of, wow, this is weird. This is exactly what happened here. This is happening in our free country now. How strange. How strange. Open that conversation. Get people aware. Share this out if you want to. If you know someone that wants to follow down a rabbit hole with me. Always, no matter what happens, guys, no matter what happens, no matter what comes, that nothing at all can happen without God allowing it. No matter what comes, no matter what they forbid us to do, no matter what they censor us with, no matter what they try to hit us with or throw us in jail or whatever, God's always with us. He always has control over everything, even if we don't understand why it's happening. So be aware. Other than that, I don't have anything else to say. I don't have anything else to bring to you all. As always, stock your stuff. Get yourself right. Get your house right. Get your spirit right. Get your relationship with God right. The The meetup, you guys, has changed. If you are in here and you missed my last stream, the meetup has changed from Tennessee to Virginia. It's going to be in Virginia now. So it will be the same dates, October 13th, 14th, 15th. I have put the deposit on the place, so it is ours. But it will be in Virginia, in Zuni, Virginia. Shouldn't have took my hair down. And tomorrow night, I am most likely going to have a live stream with on my channel with Catskill, New York Prepper, Catskill Prepper, Catskill Prepper, I believe, with Allie, and Pete may be able to jump in too, and we are going to discuss prepping and preparing teens and children, but it's going to be more directed towards teens and children instead of the parents. So we are going to have a discussion on talking to teens and children on our live stream. You're more than welcome to come in, but it is going to be directed more towards teens and children, what they can do to prepare without scaring them, and what they can do to stay safe, and situational awareness and so forth. That will be tomorrow night. I believe we are planning on doing around 8 p.m. And I'll put a thing up so it'll notify you guys ahead of time. But if you can join, or you have kids that you want them to learn something, please, by all means, bring them in so they can watch. I think that's it, guys. I want to thank you guys for being here with me, and thank you for the donations. Thank you to my moderators, and I hope to see y'all tomorrow night. As always, love each other, help each other, know that God's in control, and stay alert. Think for yourselves. Other than that, be safe, and y'all have an excellent night. Good night. Much love.